Okay, secret number 5, milk steaming. Our purpose with these videos is to educate people as to what we professionals do in the industry, and in turn it gives our customers the very best chance to get the best out of their coffee at home. So let's talk about milk steaming. There's way more to it than you think. It's the final piece in the perfect espresso puzzle, and that is if you have milk in your coffee. And I'll get straight into the science as to why we steam milk instead of simply heating milk up in a microwave and doing it that way. Firstly, it's more convenient and a lot quicker to steam milk on a coffee machine. So that's done out of the way. The more important reason why we steam our milk is that it gives our milk texture, and that's what makes your latte taste so special. By steaming milk properly, you are injecting billions of micro bubbles into the milk. And I'm not talking about the bubbles that you can see on top of your latte. I'm talking about the reason why when you sip a great latte, it feels rich and thick on your tongue. Now, every one of those bubbles that you're tasting when you're drinking that latte is coated with espresso. It's like a little ball coated with espresso. What this effectively does is it increases the surface area of the espresso as it travels across your tongue. And that gives you a better experience of the coffee. Well, that's if the coffee's great, it'll taste even better. If the coffee's poor, it'll give you a bad experience. It also adds, like I said, that texture. It gives extra body and thickness, and it all adds to the whole experience. So, how do we do it? I'll talk everybody through it first, I guess, and then we'll do a practical demonstration later. But the best way to work out how to do this right is to explain what wrong sounds like. And I say sounds because we use our ears as much as the thermometer when we're steaming milk. So what I normally tell people to do is just half fill a jug with plain tap water. Insert your steam wand and start steaming. Sooner or later you'll hear a familiar screaming sound coming from your water. It's a kind of a screech sound. It sounds terrible, and you don't ever hear it from my coffee shops, but you sometimes hear it from others. Okay, remember this sound. This is a bad sound. If you ever hear this sound coming out of a shop or somebody making you a coffee, walk away, because your coffee isn't going to taste good at all. When milk is steamed correctly, the bubbles act as a sound deadener, and you won't get this sound at all. It's quite muffled, the sound that you hear. So now we're ready for the real thing. So let's talk about steaming milk as opposed to steaming water. We're ready to do the real thing. What we do, we normally half fill a jug with cold milk if you can. Cold milk steams a whole lot better than hot milk. And it's the same as when you're at the milk bar getting a milkshake. Cold milk bubbles really well, hot milk doesn't. So half fill a jug with cold milk, use a thermometer until you're fully confident. Insert your steam wand into the bottom of the jug and make sure your steam wand is on an angle so that it pushes the milk around in circles rather than pointing straight down. Make sure the steam wand is not in the centre, but it's to the side of the jug on that angle, and this will create a whirlpool effect. And what this does is it breaks the big bubbles down into those micro bubbles that we're talking about. So let's pretend the milk wand is in. We open the steam tap gradually but rather quickly, and hopefully you can open it fully if possible. Open the steam tap gradually to full if possible. Once the tap is open, immediately lower your jug so that the wand is just below the surface of the milk. To make sure it's right, you should hear an intermittent sound. It's not a constant hissing, and it's that hiss, 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 hiss that you're looking for, and that's all you need to inject those little bubbles. If you have a constant hissing, your milk will end up like sea foam, and nobody wants that. After a few seconds, and you've got your swirl happening, raise the jug which will lower the steam wand well below the surface, because you only need a few seconds of that hissing. All the time trying to keep the whirlpool going, to break down those big bubbles. Towards the end of the process, you will hear the tone of the milk lowering. Now, that's a good thing, and that's what I'm talking about when you use your ears. If you're using a thermometer, stop steaming at about 60 degrees, because there's always a lag when you use a thermometer, and you'll find if you stop at 60 degrees, your milk will probably end up around 65 degrees, and that's a good place to start. Some people like their milk hotter and colder, but in the shops we do it at 65 degrees. When that's done, if there are any large bubbles, all's not lost. Bump the jug on the surface, on a hard surface, and this will break any large bubbles. Keep your jug swirling, and you should end up with a nice silky surface on the milk. Now you're ready to pour your milk. Have a large spoon or something similar handy. You'll need it to either hold back foam or drag out foam, depending on what sort of coffee you're making. I may as well talk about the different types of coffees. Three different major types are a flat white, latte and cappuccino. With a flat white, very simply, hold back your foam, pour your milk really slowly over the shot of espresso that's already in your cup, and as I said, you're holding back the foam. At the very end, when the coffee's almost full, you can drag out just a little bit of foam if you desire. That's a flat white. A latte, I always tell people to practice on a glass so you can actually see how much foam you've got. But pretty much the same as a flat white. You've got a shot of espresso in your glass or cup. Pour out your milk quickly in this case, if you like. You can stir it all through. A latte looks a lot milkier. And you can start dragging out a little bit of foam for your latte. And with a little bit of practice, you'll probably find on a cup this size, you'll end up with probably an inch of foam. That's a latte. A cappuccino is exactly the same as a latte. You can drag out a little bit more foam. Some textbooks say a cappuccino is 1/3 espresso, 1/3 milk, 1/3 foam. Whatever floats your boat, but that's about it. Exactly the same as a latte. Sprinkle it with a little bit of chocolate and sprinkles over the top. You've got a cappuccino. So follow these instructions and practice. You do have to practice, and you will reap the rewards. That's our tip for today. It is a little bit more complicated than that. Milk takes a lot of practice, so stick with it. So, but if you follow the tips, you will reap the rewards, as I said. I'm Rob, your coffee shop coach. Remember, fresh coffee is great coffee. Okay, let's do a practical demonstration on how to steam milk. There's probably in the shops lots of different ways we can steam milk. We steam it differently for a flat white versus a latte and a cappuccino. But for the sake of this exercise, I'll just do what I call a latte milk. We can use our spoon to either ladle more steam, more froth out, or hold it back for a flat white. It'll get you through. So, half fill the milk container, in this case just less than half fill. Ideally, you'll have a shot running while you're doing this. So I run a shot into a cup. I'll let that run. Now I'll come back to my milk. The reason I do that is so that the espresso is fresh. First thing you do is purge the steam wand and get rid of any water that's built up in there. Okay, watch this everyone. First thing we do when steaming milk is we bury the wand deep. Open the tap. You can see we're off to one side, we're on an angle. You open the tap slowly and very quickly lower. Hit, 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 hit. You can see the swirl happening. About now, we bury the wand deep and just let the swirl do its thing. You hear that tone changing? Right about now, it's finished. Lower it out. Tap, tap, tap. You should have silky smooth milk. I know that this is 65 degrees from experience. If you were using a thermometer, stop it at 60 degrees. We have our espresso, which is finished. Always an idea to keep the milk swirling. Cup on the side, pour. And there is a latte.